Someone please tell me what's going on.
Quiet, brat!
A police officer hit the bars with his baton, causing Mokuba to step back and frown at the man, who smirked and turned to walk away.
You can't do this! My big brother is Seto Kaiba. He'll come for me, and then you'll be sorry.
Look at you playing dumb. Do you think a plea of insanity will save your sorry hide or something?
What do you mean?
Your brother is dead.
What? You're lying! You're a liar! There's no way! How could that even happen?
You ought to know.
He pulled out his phone and showed it to Mokuba. The video that played made the boy sick to his stomach. There stood Seto, standing at the podium, giving the speech that Mokuba had heard him rehearse 1,000 times. Someone approached him then, but not just someone. Mokuba watched as his brother tried to speak to him, looking concerned, and as he drew a gun and shot Seto point blank. A crimson patch marred his expensive suit and he collapsed, and then the video went all shaky and cut off suddenly, like the person who'd been filming it was interrupted.
No.
Now do you get it?
It's a fake. It has to be.
Returning to the top story, tributes continue to pour in for Kaiba Corp's CEO and renowned duelist, Seto Kaiba, who was tragically shot dead by his brother yesterday. Paramedics did all they could at the scene, but sadly Mr. Kaiba died in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. There's no word yet on what will happen to the company, which is known to
Mokuba couldn't bear to listen anymore. He dropped to his knees with his head bowed while his brain went haywire. He remembered getting in the car that morning and then waking up in a cell apparently the next day. How could he have shot Seto? How could he have done it and not remembered? The officer left and Mokuba didn't try to argue with him any further. In fact, he didn't try to say anything at all. Whether he remembered it or not, the proof was there. He'd killed his big brother. His confidant and protector and pseudo-father was gone. Mokuba put his arms around his chest and backed into a corner, and there he stayed. He didn't speak, he didn't eat, and even when he was put in front of a public prosecutor a day later, and he ruled that he'd be put on trial in a closed family court for his crime, he didn't so much as stir. Slowly, a pair of azure eyes opened, blinking against the harshness of the light. The man they belonged to tried to move, but was weighed down by various tubes and wires coming out of his body. Groggy, but aware nonetheless, Seto removed the mask from his face that had been feeding his aching body oxygen and attempted again to sit up. But a pain in his chest knocked him back down. Where was he? What was going on? Then he remembered.
The ceremony. The gun. Mokuba!
Hush now. You're in a hospital. You've had a nasty accident and have been unconscious for 2 weeks.
I can't have! I have a kid who's been taking care of him! I mean, I'm not his father, but I'm all he's got! And Noah's probably scared witless. And my company! I don't have time to be in a hospital!
I'm afraid you don't have a choice. You were shot in the chest, my dear. It took our best surgeons 8 hours to repair the damage done. You're very lucky to be alive. The bullet missed everything vital by centimeters. I'd imagine you're hungry. I'll get you some food.
I don't want food. I want to see my brother!
Well, at first glance, it sure looked like a hospital, but something about the place didn't ring true. The windows in every hospital he'd ever been in were big and allowed for plenty of natural light, but these ones were small and too high to see out of. And the noise was another dead giveaway. Seto hadn't spent a lot of time in hospitals in his life, but he knew enough to know that they were loud. There were always the sounds of footsteps and chatter, wheels turning, people rushing. But beyond the machine registering his heart rate, Seto heard nearly nothing.
Did whoever's behind all this really think they could fool me?
He thrust the blanket off and stood up, but he was far from steady on his feet. With a growl of frustration, he rubbed his eyes, trying to will away the effects of the drugs in his system, and set about disconnecting himself from the drips and monitors that were wired to him, like he was some sort of outlet. Once he could move somewhat freely again, the wound still inhibited his movements. Seto searched his surroundings. He found some of his personal effects in a cupboard beside his bed. His locket, his wallet, but no phone, naturally. He then slipped on a clean shirt and turned his attention to finding something with which to defend himself. Whoever had him there, Seto doubted their true priority was his health. He eventually found an unused syringe and pulled the cap off. It wasn't a lot, but it would do. Moving carefully, he waited by the door frame when the nurse, if she was indeed that, entered. Seto quickly moved, trapping her with one arm and holding the syringe to her throat. He was in pain and therefore weakened, but just the same, the woman dropped her tray and didn't put up a fight.
You have two options. The first is that you tell me what's going on here. Tell me where I am and where my brother is, and who is behind all this. The second is this in your neck. It's up to you.
Unfortunately, his threat seemed a little too effective, as the woman was rendered unable to speak out of fear. He loosened his grip, and when she didn't fight him, Seto pushed her as far away from him as he could and ran for it. Evidently, who brought him here didn't expect him to get out of the bed, let alone the room. So he didn't meet any further resistance as he bolted from the building, one arm cradling his aching chest. To himself, Seto vowed to see to it that this was the last time this person, whoever they were, underestimated him.